It was just a normal Sunday in the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob was flipping the patties, and Squidward was just being grumpy at the cash register. Mr. Krabs was in his office counting the money he's earned so far. The bell rang, which meant someone was coming into the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob got filled with delight with the thought of another fish being able to eat another Krabby Patty today. As SpongeBob jumped up and looked at the window, he saw that there was a figure in a brown coat with a brown hat covering his face. He looked down so you couldn't see his face for sure, but his feet and his hands, well, his fins, were purple, so he must have been a purple fish. Squidward asked him, "Sir, what would you like to order today?" But there was no reply. Mr. Krabs, for some odd reason, immediately came out of his office. He started coming to the fish. Mysterious fish is what I saw him as. Squidward stepped out of the cash register. He was following right beside Mr. Krabs. They walked up to the person. Fish. He then turned around, crouched down, put the briefcase that he had on the ground, and he opened it, and he was taking something, like he was putting something together. He then turned around real fast, swinging an axe into Mr. Krabs' head. As it went through his head, he slammed it into the neck of Squidward. As the heads fell to the floor, so did the bodies, and blood went everywhere. SpongeBob began to panic as he jumped out. He yelled help, but knowing no one was in the Krusty Krab. As he ran out the door, the guy was leaving. And for some reason, Mr. Krabs and Squidward were okay. There was no blood, no decapitated bodies, no heads on the ground. But Squidward seemed oddly happy. Then another customer came in. SpongeBob asked for help. "What do you need help for, boyo?" Mr. Krabs said. Squidward said, "What, did you slam another Krabby Patty into the roof?" He started to laugh. SpongeBob said, "But you just got decapitated." "If we just got decapitated, how'd we still be here?" said Mr. Krabs. "Never mind," said SpongeBob as he ran back into the kitchen. As the day went on, SpongeBob noticed that Squidward was oddly happy. He wasn't grumpy like he normally was. He was just being excited, telling jokes. Mr. Krabs, unlike usual, where he was counting his money or bathing in a bathtub full of his money, he was giving his money away. He knew something wasn't right. Mr. Krabs would never give money away. He's greedy. Squidward's never happy, so he would never tell jokes. As the day went on, even more, SpongeBob being suspicious, being wary, keeping up his guard, making sure nothing happens to him. He was called into the office of Mr. Krabs by the speaker. As SpongeBob went into the office, he closed the door, turned around. Mr. Krabs simply handed him a box and said, "Don't open this until you're at the house. Your house." SpongeBob looked confused. He said, "Why, Mr. Krabs?" "Just don't open this till you're at your house." "Okay, yes sir, Mr. Krabs," said SpongeBob. As he walked out of the office and closed the door with the box in his hand, he felt odd. Something about the box wasn't right. He was nervous and worried. He felt something. Something bad was happening. Something bad was in the box. He thought there was something. But what about the bright side? What could this be? Is it a letter, like maybe a quest to go get Mr. Krabs some more money? Maybe that's why he was giving some of his money away today. Could it possibly be my paycheck? It'd be odd that it's in a box, but you never know with Mr. Krabs. SpongeBob giggled. I would say that it could simply just be a new jellyfishing net, but it's way too heavy to be one. Hours later, while SpongeBob was working, it was now 12 a.m. They were dismissed. SpongeBob and Squidward were getting ready to leave. Mr. Krabs locked up the store. SpongeBob started walking, but Squidward didn't follow. Squidward just stood right by Mr. Krabs' side. They just stood right there in front of the Krusty Krab, staring at SpongeBob with no emotion. SpongeBob just kept looking back, but they never got closer, they never got farther, they never left. They were just standing in the front of the Krusty Krab, just staring at SpongeBob as SpongeBob walked to his house. When SpongeBob arrived at his house, he unlocked the door, he opened it, and he simply put the box down as he closed the door. When he opened the box, he was disturbed. His stomach made him want to throw up when he saw that it was the separate heads of Mr. Krabs and Squidward. Why would there be separate heads of the victims of whatever that fish was? Wait, if these are the real heads of Mr. Krabs and Squidward, and I wasn't hallucinating earlier, then what were those things that were pretending to be them? What was it? SpongeBob considered calling the police. Before he could call out to Gary to make sure Gary was okay, the power turned out. As the power turned out, the kitchen door in front of SpongeBob started to creak open. As the outline of a figure began to appear, SpongeBob opened the door that was behind him, the entrance. He ran out. As he ran out, he realized it was darker than normal. You couldn't see anything in the sky. You couldn't see nothing. It was like about 10 feet in front or around you at all. You couldn't see nothing. As SpongeBob started running down the road, specifically running down the way that the Krusty Krab wasn't, he just ran straight. He didn't know where he was going, but he just ran. He knew if he ran, he might get away from whatever these things were. But that's when he saw it. A street light. Right by the street light was a bus stop. He stopped then. He waited at the bus stop. Maybe the bus driver would stop and get him somewhere. Take him somewhere. I mean, it's happened before. As he waited, he then fell asleep. He fell asleep and had a nightmare. He couldn't remember what it was when he woke up, though. When he woke up, on the other side of the road, they were there. Squidward and Mr. Krabs. It was still dark outside, but he could see their expressions. They had nothing. Their eyes were just plain, like staring into your soul. They just stood on the other side of the road. They didn't move, nothing. They were the same height. There was nothing different about the coloring, really. They didn't have nothing in their hands, either. They just stood there. SpongeBob then ran. Right as he ran, Mr. Krabs was there right behind him. It was like Mr. Krabs had teleported. SpongeBob started to slowly walk back when something hit him in the back. When he turned around, it was Squidward, but it wasn't. It was darker, like a dark blue design on him. His eyes, they weren't the same. They were just complete black, like there was nothing there, no eyes, nothing. He then considered, wait, this was not even them. What kind of evil person would do this? Could these actually just be non-human things? Could they be something like robots? Could Plankton have been the one who caused this? As he thought about this, he got lost into the fact that those things were right by him. All of a sudden, Squidward then grabbed SpongeBob. Grabbed his arms. It started tightening around and making SpongeBob scream with how painful the feel was. It was tightening even more and more. SpongeBob could feel the fact that he couldn't even feel blood going down his veins. As SpongeBob looked up, Squidward was now taller than the old Squidward that SpongeBob once knew. As he opened his mouth, a bunch of sharp, laser-sharp teeth had started appearing, coming around the sides of the mouth as well. It started to slowly consume SpongeBob, and the last thing SpongeBob thought of before he felt the blade-like things going into his skull was simple. Who was the figure I saw?